Man is here and is, I think, in a seven time. I think you have not missed a Shavuot Live. I think that's true.
That is true.
Yeah, and um, a long time friend of Judaism Unbound and part of Judaism Unbound and all around, uh, I don't know, mensch in all sorts of ways. And so, um, you're holding things down at Vassar as the is your title Jewish chaplain? I forget what your title is.
My title is way too long to announce at 3 a.m. So
As
yes, that works.
steward of Jewish students at Vassar, Bryan does wonderful work there, and I couldn't be more excited to take in the next hour of learning from you. So, Bryan, take it away.
Thank you. Um, for those who care about such things, my full title is Racklin Director for Jewish Student Life and Assistant Director of the Office of Religious and Spiritual Life and Contemplative Practices at Vassar College, which is a wild title. Anywho, um, among many other things, I am a lover and learner of Svara. So I'm going to actually start us with a practice that I learned via Svara, which is the practice of dedicating our learning.
And Svara, just the organization that does lovely queer Talmud learning for folks unfamiliar.
Thank you, Lex. So for those who are unfamiliar with this practice or for those who need a reminder, a dedication for our learning could be in honor of someone's memory. It could be to celebrate someone who would be delighted that you are here. It could be an FU to someone who would hate that you're here, and you want to give them a little FU via a dedication. It could be a dedication for healing to individuals or to places in the world. Wherever and however you want to send the energy that we are building up through Shavuot Live. I invite you now to share dedications for our learning in the chat. I am dedicating my learning to my paternal grandfather, whose yortzeit is Shavuot, Eliyahu Mordechai ben Yitzhak V'Gidol. You're welcome to continue dedicating your learning. We have a brief time together, so I'm going to move us relatively quickly. Um, Friends who are on the live stream and not in the Zoom, this is going to be pretty interactive. So if you want to hop into the Zoom, so that you can be participating in the chat and out loud and not just passively watching this session, if you haven't found the registration link in other ways, you can find it at bit.ly/Shavuot 2026. Well done, Judaism Unbound, getting that bit.ly before anyone else did. Um, so, for those who didn't see the preview of this session, we're talking about Esau and we're talking about vampirism, which is why I did a quick fit change. For those, uh, and in order to talk about Esau's potential vampirism, we have to ask, what do we know about vampires? So there's a couple people who want to respond out loud, or you're welcome in the chat. Um, what do we know about vampires? Garlic avoidant. Carrie, go for it.
In what seems like a poetic mirror to the previous hour, they live through taking others' lives.
They live through taking others' lives. They can't see their reflection, immortality. Sexy, maybe. Depends on kind of, are you a Nosferatu kind of vampire lore, or are you a, True Blood or Buffy or Interview with a vampire lore? Um, Sometimes they're family friendly, right? People have been sharing Count Von Count in the chat as we count each hour of Shavuot, right? So that's a way of saying that, right? The lore is vast and varied. Um, can't do sunlight according to some, or they sparkle in sunlight according to others. You're welcome, or I'm sorry, depending on your fandom preferences on that one. Cool. What do we know about Esau? This might be a harder question to answer depending on your knowledge of Bible. There's no expected knowledge that you know anything about Esau, but what do we know about Esau? We're starting off with Harry. We've got Red. He likes stew. He's strong. He's an older twin. Hunter, firstborn. Cool. Lex, if you wanna, he gets shafted. Lex, if you wanna now share the source sheet, and I will put the source sheet also in the chat.
Sorry, I'm
Not
getting
great.
there. Just take me.
No worries. Um, Great. And feel free to zoom in or do whatever you need to do to make it a little bit bigger, so it's more readable. Cool. So a lot of folks jumped in immediately with he's a hunter. And that's where our first source jumps in. Is someone down to read this first source from Genesis?
I'll read it. I'm nice and awake. When the boys grew up, Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the outdoors, but Jacob became a mild man, raising livestock. Isaac favored Esau because of the game in his mouth, but Rebekah favored Jacob.
Kind of give away where I'm going already in the title, but what's weird about this text? There could be other things, but what's weird about this text?
I mean, the game in his mouth was interesting as a thing.
Right? Game in his mouth. That is what Isaac favors Esau because of, right? And there is people are asking whose mouth, right? There's a way to interpret this by saying it's the game that Esau is feeding Isaac. It's the game in Isaac's mouth, the game that Esau has hunted. But as we'll see in Bereshit Rabbah, there's another way to interpret this. If you want to scroll down, Lex. Is someone up for reading the Bereshit Rabbah? Will scroll as we go, so apologies if that's a little bit visually difficult. Aster. Also, if I mispronounce your name when I call on you, please correct me.
No, it's cool. The lads grew. Esau was a man who knows hunting, a man of the field. Jacob was a simple man, a dweller in tents. Esau was a man who knows hunting, Zaid. He would ensnare Zod, people, with his mouth. You, say you, did not steal. Who stole with you? You, say you, did not kill. Who killed with you?
Let's
Isaac loved.
pause. Let's pause there just for a brief moment. Um, right, so we already have our interpretive move by Bereshit Rabbah saying that Esau was a man who knew hunting, which the Hebrew there is Sayed, and they do this interpretive move to say he would ensnare, doing wordplay on that Hebrew to change it into tzad, people with his mouth. Keep going, Aster.
Isaac loved Esau because of the game in his mouth, and Rebekah loved Jacob. Isaac loved Esau because of the game in his mouth, good meat for his mouth and a good cup for his mouth. And Rebekah loved Jacob. The more she would hear his voice, the more she would add love onto her love for him.
Right, so that's just closing out the text. But really this bolded part that or sorry, the bolded part above this bolded part, the part talking about the wordplay of knowing hunting and ensnaring people, right? That's our first interpretive move, that what Esau's doing in the field is actually ensnaring people, not just hunting animals. Let's go ahead and scroll down. Right. Some people already mentioned redness, both in terms of Esau himself, but also in terms of this stew. Can someone bring us into this text?
I can read.
Thank you.
Once Jacob was cooking a stew, Esau came in from the open, famished. And Esau said to Jacob, "Give me some of that red stuff to gulp down, for I am famished," which is why he was named Edom. Jacob said, "First sell me your birthright." And Esau said, "I am at the point of death, so what is the use of my birthright to me?"
And for folks unaware of the Hebrew there, Edom can be translated as like red or the red one. Um, but this, for those who might need a little bit more context, right? This is the infamous story, one part of the infamous story, the first deception of Esau, where Esau comes in, presumably just from hunting animals, according to the Pshat, is famished. He sees Isaac making red stuff, right? Unclear. The text never says it's stew. The text never says it's lentils, right? At least not initially. Esau just sees red, right?
Can
Red.
I, I mean, I think you're probably going there, but it doesn't obviously say a dome if you're going without vowels
Yep.
in the okay, so you're
Yes,
going there.
we're
You're
going
going
there.
there.
We're going
Great.
there. Yep.
Great.
Yep. So let's go ahead and scroll down. Uh Yeah, okay, cool. We'll get to that soon, Lex, I promise. Is someone willing to jump in on the Rashi on Genesis? So Rashi, famous commentator on the Torah. A lot of people will ask the question, what's bothering Rashi, to try to figure out what questions we should ask about the text. There's a book called What's Bothering Rashi. Who wants to bring us into this Rashi commentary? I know it's 3 a.m. I know a lot of
Yeah,
folks are tired. Great,
I can
awesome.
go. Yeah, I just what do I do for the Hebrew? I guess just skip
Just read the English. Yeah, just read the
yeah,
English for now.
let's say means boiling, as the Targum renders it. And he was faint, though through murdering people, just as you mentioned faintness in connection with murder. It's Jeremiah 4:31. For my soul fainteth before the murderers. It's Genesis Rabbah 63:12.
Right. So what Rashi is doing here is really the second part is what's most important. The Hebrew vehu ayef, and he was faint. Rashi says that means he was faint because he was murdering people, because elsewhere in Jeremiah, that same phrase explicitly talks about murdering people. Vehu ayef. Right? So here's Rashi's proof to prove that Esau's out in the field killing some people.
I have to say this is hilarious. Like he's faint. Like next time somebody says they're tired, Ayef is it's just like I'm tired. I'm gonna presume it's because they're murdering people. It's like
Yep.
this is awesome. Rashi rocks.
Awesome. And now let's go into Bereshit Rabbah. I didn't say this before. Bereshit Rabbah is essentially collections of what people often call rabbinic fan fiction. It is the rabbis finding kind of questions in the text, things that the Torah text doesn't really give us all of the details of, and fills in those details in different ways. Some people think Midrash is just kind of made up nonsense, but what I deeply appreciate Midrash, it's one of my favorite genres of Jewish text, is that it's always based in something in the text, whether a grammatical nuance in the Hebrew or some symbols, as we'll see later, or there's always something that's actually textually based that's driving the midrash. Someone willing to read this.
I'll read it. Esau came in from the field. Rabbi Yudan in the name of Rabbi of Ivu, Rabbi Pinchas in the name of Rabbi Levi, and the rabbis in the name of Rabbi Simon said, you find that Abraham lived 175 years, Yitzhak 180. Those 5 years that the Holy One blessed the divine withheld from his life, it is because Esau violated 2 transgressions. He consorted with a betrothed young woman, as it is stated, for he found her in the field, and he was weary. He killed a person, just as it says, for my soul is wearied by the killers. Rabbi, where are we?
Actually, that's maybe yeah, we can kind of skip ahead.
Okay.
Sorry, and Adriana. Uh, yeah, so essentially what this is saying, and we can actually just keep going, is that uh yeah, we'll go back up to that first bold that oh yeah, Esau said to Jacob. So let's pause there for a minute. But basically what this is saying is, right, we have all of these biblical figures that we know they lived super long times. Abraham, Isaac, others. And this is saying Esau did not merit long life. Why? Because he's out there preying not just on people anymore, but specifically young women, maybe virgins, depending on your translation. Um, and I forget what we just read it, but I already forget the second thing that he did. But because of the evils that Esau's out there doing in the field, he doesn't merit the long life that Abraham and Isaac merit. Let's pick up here in the bold. Andreen, if you want to keep reading, or if we want a new reader.
Yeah, Esau said to Yaakov, feed me now from that red Adom dish, as I am weary. Therefore, his name is called Edom. Esau said to Jacob, feed me now from that red. Rabbi Zera said, that wicked one opened his mouth wide like a camel. He said to him, I will open my mouth too, and you continuously pour. Like what we learned, one may not forcibly overfeed a camel. There it is. And one may not force feed it. However, one may place food into its mouth. From that red, Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan said, from him and from his patron. Rish Lakish said, from him and from those like him. He is red, his cooked food is red, his land is red, his warriors are red, his garments are red. One who is red exacts retribution against him in red garments. He is red. The first emerged ruddy. His cooked food is red. Feed me now from that red. His land is red. To the land of Seir, to the field of Edom. His mighty ones are red. His warriors' shields are reddened. His garments are red. His soldiers are colored scarlet. One who is red exacts retribution against him. My beloved is clear and ruddy. Red attire. Why is there red in your attire?
So this is essentially just a litany of all the ways that Esau is connected with redness or Edom. I was trying to kind of source this from an ancient Near East perspective, but most of the text I could find is from a Slavic perspective, equating red hair with vampirism in particular. Um, which, cross tradition, sure, but not quite where these texts are coming from geographically. So, not the greatest proof in my mind to link the redness of Esau with vampirism. What I couldn't find which I was surprised by, because if you really want to prove Esau's vampirism, and this is where Lex was going earlier, is the Hebrew for red, Aleph, Dalid, Mem. Does anyone else know other words that translate from Aleph, Dalid, Mem? Here is Hedom.
Should I keep this screen share up or should I unscreen share?
Let's keep it up for now because we're gonna
Okay,
move.
cool. Other words with
Great.
Aleph, Dalet,
I'm
Mem?
seeing it. I'm seeing it in the chat. Adam, mankind, or human. June Timber, is that where you were going, or is this a different response? Oh, okay. Your hand came down, so I'm guessing you were kind of going in that direction, right? If you really want to prove Esau's vampirism, then, as Lex was saying earlier, right, this text was not originally written with vowels, right? So it's very easy to, instead of saying Esau saw red, red stuff and said, feed me from that red, red stuff, and instead said, feed me from that human, human stuff, right? And that is not something that I see the commentary going in, maybe because it's the red stuff that um, Jacob is cooking, and they don't want to imply that Jacob is cooking human meat, right? But the way that I see it in this line of interpretation is Esau's fully unaware of what Jacob is cooking in this moment, right? Because he doesn't say, feed me from food. He just says, feed me from that red stuff. Whatever that red stuff is, I want it, right? So it's not about what Jacob is actually cooking, right? It's about how Esau sees what Jacob is cooking, and potentially how Esau sees it because he's famished, because he's been out in the field hunting humans, and or because he's faint from his vampirism and he needs some blood. He sees it as human stuff that he needs to eat and is willing to sell his birthright for it. Let's scroll down. Yeah, you can skip this part. Uh, cool. Let's no, because we gotta move some quickly. Okay, cool. Um, so where we're moving ahead in text, right? We're moving a little bit ahead in Esau and Jacob's story, right? There's a fleeing that happens. And there's a fleeing specifically. Jacob flees in fear of Esau's retribution because of his deception of Isaac. Happy to share more about that story. And then there's this moment of reconciliation, right? And this moment of reconciliation happens a long time later, after they are grown a bit more. And let's just read through the reconciliation. But since we're actually already here, Lex, can you zoom in on the Hebrew anymore? Is that possible?
Give
Uh,
me, yes, give me a second. I think
Great.
where do you want me to
That
zoom
actually
in?
might be enough right there. So what I want folks to note is that second to last line in Hebrew. Remember, Hebrews goes right to left, so you're looking at that second word in the or sorry, yeah, technically the second, but the first word is hyphenated in the very last line. The word that has a bunch of dots over it. Those dots are important in Torah, ever since Torah has been written down, this word, even without the vowels, has been written with these dots over it. If you look in a Torah scroll at this chapter and verse, you will see these dots over this word. It's not just because it's vocalized on Sepharia, it's in there even without the vowels. Let's scroll back up so we can see the full English Lex, and who wants to read next?
I can read.
Thank you, Rivka.
Looking up, Jacob saw Esau coming with a retinue of 400. He divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the two maids, putting the maids and their children first. Very rude. Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph last. He himself went on ahead and bowed low to the ground 7 times until he was near his brother. Esau ran to greet him. He embraced him, and falling on his neck, He kissed him, and they wept.
He fell on his neck. He kissed him, and they wept. That is what we were told about Esau's reaction to this moment of reconciliation, right? There's some ambiguity because this is all gendered male, so who's kissing who's falling on whose neck? Well, Bereshit Rabbah is about to clarify that for us. So let's scroll down and jump into the Bereshit Rabbah. I'm already seeing in the chat that some folks might know some of the interpretive moves that are about to happen, which I appreciate. Um, is someone willing to jump in on our midrash?
Esau ran to meet him, embraced him, fell upon his neck, and kissed him, and they wept. Esau ran to meet him and kissed him, Vayishakehu. It is dotted above it. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar said, every place you find the script more numerous than the dots, you expound the script. But the dots more numerous than the script, you expound the dots. Here, neither is the script more numerous than the dots, nor are the dots more numerous than the script.
Pause there, let's
Rather,
just for a quick
yeah,
moment. Basically, what that's pointing out is that there are 6 dots and 6 Hebrew letters, right? So it's kind of up to us to decide, right? Do we interpret this based off the pshat that this was just a kiss? Or do we interpret this based off the dots, right? Because we have neutrality here. We have 6 Hebrew letters, 6 dots. So it's on us to decide which route to go. Keep going, Lex.
rather, it teaches that at the moment he was overcome with mercy, and he kissed him with all his heart. Rabbi Yanai said to him, if so, why is it dotted over it? Rather, it teaches that he did not come to kiss him, but rather to bite him, and Jacob's neck was transformed into marble, and the teeth of that wicked one were blunted. Why does the verse state, and they wept? It is rather that this one wept over his neck, and that one wept over his teeth. Rabbi Abahu, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, derives it from here. Your neck is like the ivory tower, from Shir HaShirim.
So, for those unaware of Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs, it is a book of love poetry, um, and it has a lot of flowery language around bodies, right? So, the pshat of Shir HaShirim is talking about how beautiful someone's neck is. Your neck is like an ivory tower. So lovely, so wonderful. The interpretive move that Bereshit Rabbah is doing, though, is, right, both of them weep, right? And they wept. Not just and he wept, but and they wept. So what the Bereshit Rabbah is saying is Esau went to bite him, and we know that because there were dots over Vayishakehu, and he kissed him. So it wasn't only a kiss, it was indeed a bite. And a miracle happened in that moment. That Jacob, in order to resist this vampire bite, his neck turned into marble, proven by this Shir HaShirim text that your neck is like a marble tower or ivory tower. And Jacob is weeping, not because of love of his brother, not because of the sweet moment of reconciliation, but holy crap, my neck is turning into marble, and or oh my gosh, my neck turning into marble really, really hurts, so I'm crying out in pain, or oh my gosh, my brother just tried to bite me, so I'm crying out in pain, right? That's what this Bereshit Rabbah text is doing by bringing in the Song of Songs text. Um, oh my God, my neck, and after the hip thing. Yes, so the hip thing actually comes later, and we're gonna jump, I think, to the hip thing. There's other sources in this source sheet that you can explore that talk more and more about the dots over and he kissed him. But I think for the sake of time, let's jump down to Lex. The text should have um like there should be a header saying like either the wrestling match or something like that. Um, Thank you. Yes. So we're jumping. Actually, I think we're jumping backward, right? This happens before the reconciliation. I'm pretty sure. So we're jumping a little bit backward in Torah, right? This is, some might know this famous story of the wrestling match between Jacob and this being. I'm purposefully leaving that vague, because it's kind of vague in the text, but also because of where we're going. Um, and as someone mentioned, the hip thing, this is the hip thing. Is someone up for reading this text? Abby, thank you.
And so the gift went on ahead, while he remained at camp that night. That same night he arose, and taking his 2 wives, his 2 maidservants, and his 11 sons, he crossed the ford of the Jabbok. After taking them across the stream, he sent across all his possessions. Yaakov was left alone, and a figure wrestled with him until the break of dawn. When he saw that he had not prevailed against him, he wrenched Jacob's hip at its socket so that the socket of his hip was strained as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for dawn is breaking." But he answered, "I will not let you go until you bless me." Said the other, "What is your name?" He replied, "Yaakov." Said he, "Your name shall no longer be Yaakov, but Yisrael. For you have striven with beings divine and human, and have prevailed." Yaakov asked, "Pray tell me your name." But he said, "You must not ask my name." And he took leave of him there. So Yaakov named the place Peniel, meaning, "I have seen a divine being face to face, yet my life has been preserved." The sun rose upon him as he passed Penuel, limping on his hip.
I'm seeing already in the chat from Megan, oop, the sun, right? Let me go for dawn is breaking, right? And we've talked already about vampiric issues with sunlight, whether that's dust issues or sparkling issues. I have to give kavod and credit to Natan Slivkin, who was my first exposure to this Torah. He has a great rationalist Judaism article called Esau the Vampire, where he doesn't fully cite his sources because he wants us to kind of decide for ourselves how much it matters, whether these are traditional Jewish sources or more modern interpretations or whatnot, and how much that matters. But what he points out here in this text are various things, including, right, at times this being is called Ish, man. At other times this being is called Elohim, divine. The being itself says you have striven with a divine being and won. But wait, human, divine, maybe something in between human and divine? Maybe an immortal that's not quite divine, but not quite human? Question mark. This wrestling match happens, right? Jacob crosses water, comes back to the other side of water. This wrestling match happens on one side of the water. There's a lot of interpretations that say vampires can't cross water. Um, right? And because of the ambiguity of this figure being referred to as Ish, being referred to as Elohim, there's a lot of question marks on who this figure is. Some claim it's an angel, some claim it's a person. The line of interpretation I'm using for this particular proof is some say it was Esau's guardian angel, or one might say Esau's sire? Question mark? Right? That this being is also vampiric. Could be Esau, Esau's self, could be Esau's sire. Who knows? Um, we can stop the screen share because I want to shift into conversation now. The piece that I want to bring in though is if you're down to like hang out with me in the potential weirdness of this text, if Esau's sire or Esau himself as a vampire is the one who wrestled with Jacob, that means we get our name. We get Yisrael. We get the people who struggle with the divine from vampires, from Esau's vampiric legacy. And so I just kind of want to open it up at this point. We got probably about like 15 minutes to 20 minutes to just chat and hang. anything you want to dig in more about the proof text of Esau's vampirism, anything you want to dig into more about this question around what it means for us to get our name from this vampiric legacy, opening up the floor.
And let's get some raised hands. Like I think there's plenty of discussion to be had. So take like I'll give like 15 seconds to generate some questions. Aster has a hand. Um, I'll start with just a comment question. Um, One of the things I'm most taking away is like the obsession with Edom as red and not as meat or flesh. Like to me, we should be translating it like flesh, because flesh, you can kind of take it either way, right? Like it could be human flesh, or it could be like, I don't know. I'm curious if you thought about like the implications of the vampire possibilities on how we might translate the various Genesis texts.
I mean, I've thought about it most around the Edom, Adam, right? We could even go a little bit further afield with Adamah, right? The way that at least most vampiric lore talks about the way vampires disappear upon murder is by getting dusted, right? They get staked through the heart,
And
they get their head
Adama,
chopped
just to
off.
fill in the gap, Adama is dust or
Right, Adama's
soil. Yeah.
earth or dust, right? So like where I've been kind of been like hanging out the most is like still around that Adam, Adama, Edom, right? Like there's just so much there to play with this like vampiric stuff. Um, yeah. I see Aster and then Adrien.
Perfect.
And again, if I'm mispronouncing your names, please correct me when you
Um, Honestly, I am tired and I forgot what I was going to say. I'll let you know if I remember.
Great. Awesome. Andreen.
Yeah, Andreen.
Andreen,
Thanks.
thank you.
I've actually done a little bit of study on Judaism and vampires. For a film series I have called Kind of Horror. So there's a whole bunch of stuff about, Jews being categorized as vampires, and we looked at Dracula in particular. But this whole idea of the blood libel, right? They're out there, they're taking your women, they're taking your kids, they're eating them, making them into matzah or whatever. And there's a huge amount of anti-Semitism within Bram Stoker's history. The Nazis were very famously into vampires also. But just the idea that the origin story of Israel is going back to Esau had not surfaced at all. So this is fascinating to me. The whole idea of the Edom factor really drives this home, as it were, like a stake through the heart. There's just so much stuff that when there are Jewish vampires too. There's this whole thing with the Aluka, a Jewish vampire in the biblical texts of it's like a horse leech, I think, and the Estries, which are these female vampires in medieval Jewish folklore. So there's a lot of stuff that comes up, particularly in Ashkenaz, about Jews being vampires. We start our days at nightfall, right? We don't eat food like normal people, I don't drink wine, whatever. It's like there's just a lot of stuff that comes up around vampires. It's so interesting that it goes all the way back to Esau. So thank you so much for this presentation.
Thank you. And right, I want to kind of separate these out, right? These are related but separate, right? Like Esau, right? Famously not Jewish, right? And also for those who know rabbinic texts, for those who know kind of the interpretation that comes later, right? Like Edom gets linked with Amalek, which is the big bad of all, kind of Jewish texts, right? If you need a big bag of bad of Judaism, it's like Edom or Amalek, right? The source sheet does the full source sheet that I've linked in the chat and that I can send out to anyone else who's interested does have sources for that conversation, the conversation of the history of Jewish vampires and where you can find proto-Jewish vampires or Jewish vampires. It also has a link to a Goodreads list of any book that has a Jewish vampire in it, right? But that is a little bit different than what we're talking about. Like, yes, I want to honor, because I also saw it in the chat, right? Like, there is anti-Semitic history when it comes to vampires, when it comes to blood libels, when it comes to all of that. And as I was doing research for this, I'm gonna blank on the podcast. I want to say it's something like Jewitches or something like that, has a whole like 20-minute episode around Jewish vampires where they start with like we can't have this conversation without talking about that history, right? And right, what this teaching is on, what this source sheet is on, is Esau's vampirism. There's still that link because we still get our name right if we think this being, whether vampire or angel, is somehow connected to Esau. We still get our name from Esau, right? So there's still that link there, but it is a slightly different topic um, that I haven't done as much research into. Um,
Let's get one or two more. Let's get a few more questions, thoughts in the room. I like there's a lot of good stuff happening in the chat, but I'd love for folks who want to verbalize a little to bring some of that.
I will. I was just thinking about the fact that Haman is
boo!
Amalek, and
You
he
were
was into
ready. That was
impaling people,
quick.
right? He was very good. He was his thing he always wanted to do was impale people. He was in fact impaled them in revenge. But Dracula is Vlad the Impaler. It doesn't make any sense, but it rhymes.
Great, thank you. Katie KF, I love you so much. Hi.
Um, Hi. Now for something completely different. Um, there's just been like so much incredible stuff going on in the chat. But another thing that I keep thinking about, I guess the implications of this, and it's sort of interesting, this idea of like getting our name from a vampire. Um, there's something there about this is more of like a comment, like a throw into the middle, but for me it feels like maybe there's something there about this the way that we do like sort of relate to vampires, right? This like hated minority when we come into like the blood libel, like this sort of like misunderstood thing. And I think like with vampires, it's interesting because like we hate vampires and we also understand that vampires like must do what they do. Um, and that to me, yeah, that's all that feels like potentially pregnant there. And I just like I keep thinking about it. Yeah, about how it sort of makes sense. It's sort of appropriate almost. I think that we get, if we were to, like that we would have gotten our name from a creature like that. Like it really feels like this like alliance. I know like describing like Esau as like an alliance is it's illogical in Torah texts. But in the sense of being named and being sense of like continually connected and connected for all time and continually. Yeah. Anyway, TYT.
Thank you, Shmati. Yeah, and I think, right, like, and that inherent tension is with Esau himself, right? Like, the rabbis really hate on Esau. Like, they really, really do. And yet, they're also the same ones who claim, or at least some of them, that he's the one who gave us our name, right? So like, how does the same, right? There's always contradictions in Torah. There's always contradictions in Talmud, right? That's not a huge surprise for those of us who have learned those texts, but right, for him to be so defamed and so hated in the text, and then also named as the source of how we get our name, right, is its own inherent tension that I think is kind of similar to what you're bringing out about the other tensions around vampires and whatnot. Rivka.
Yeah, I hate when people do this, but I don't have a coherent question. I just kind of wanted to, like, because we talked a few times in chat about, like, I have a bee in my bonnet about how much Asav hate there is. Because it's like they are reaching for the worst interpretations in every situation. Every time he comes up, whatever he's doing, it's like, oh, he's doing the worst thing. And it's like, this guy, what did he actually do wrong? But I think, like, talking through the anti-Semitism piece of it, I think makes a lot of sense because it's kind of like it's the same, it's the same thing. It's like there's, very baseless accusations, um, that yeah, it's like so much stereotyping and um uh yeah, assumptions. Anyway, it's not even 6 p.m. here. I have no business being so incoherent, but here we are.
No, I appreciate it because this allows me to go into my next favorite way of talking about this text, which, right, right? It was only a kiss. How did we end up like this? Right? Like the shot is, and he kissed him, right? But like to your point, right? The rabbis see these dots, right? And say, ah, those dots must mean bite, right? And we have all of these other ways of saying how awful Esau is, right? Like, in case you like couldn't tell, like I have a deep love and appreciation for vampires. So like for me, it's like Esau, vampirism, awesome, cool, great, right? Like I'm not as much as like Esau's vampirism equals he is the most evil, blah blah blah, right? That's where the rabbis go, right? But I think, those of us who love the spoopy, the spooky, the scary, the supernatural, right? Like there's fun to be had here, right? There's what to draw out without necessarily needing the weight of the hatred of Esau that the rabbis bring in. Um,
Bryan, I just need to out loud appreciate the Mr. Brightside Torah. The challenge is finding the layers of the rest of the lyrics over the course of the next bunch of hours. Um, I you hinted at something that I find super interesting, and I don't want you to leave without talking about it. You mentioned like this question of like, does it matter if this is original, like if the idea of Esau as a vampire is kind of an OG original Torah take or an old, or if it's like a more contemporary, like you were hinting that your teacher like has thoughts on this. I'm curious your thoughts. Like, does it like would you say that this is kind of really potentially there in the original text? And kind of either way, whether yes or no, would you say that it matters either way for how we should relate to it?
yeah, I appreciate it because, right, so I think someone already shared it in the chat. It's also linked in the source sheet itself, the original Natan Slivkin article that I pulled a lot of this out of, right? Like, I am very much a like cite your sources guy because that helps me then find the sources to like find the interpretations for myself, right? But I appreciate that move, right? Like, I mentioned that already earlier that there's a lot of, not necessarily a lot of these days, but there's still some derision of Midrash. Oh, that's just nonsense. Oh, that's just the rabbis making stuff up. Oh, that's just, right? Um, and when I taught this at my local synagogue, there were a lot of people pushing me on like, but where is this coming from? What year and when and what? As if to say that like, if it wasn't ancient Torah, if it wasn't Bereshit Rabbah, if it wasn't Talmud, if it wasn't, right, like, then we can just throw it all out, right? But, right, I'm a Midrash guy. Like people are continuing to create midrash in art, in story, in books. People have, mentioned Rashi's daughters, right? There's even more modern midrashim, right? There were when I was in rabbinical school, the year we were studying Bereshit was the year that the new Noah movie had come out, and then the year we were studying, and then the next year the like new Exodus movie had come out, right? Like people are still uncovering the inspiration and the wisdom and whatnot in these texts, right? And are finding ways to inspire others to create their own stories and to build their own relationships, right? Like, I think for me, part of what I love about all of this is like I was really raised on a Judaism of um, fear and of you do this so that the anti-Semites don't win, and you do this because oppression, and you do this because all of this like hard stuff in the world that like we know exists, right? But that's not the basis of my Judaism. The basis of my Judaism is like, wait, Esau is a vampire? Wait, there's dragons in the Book of Esther that aren't in our Torah but are in other sources, right? Like that's my joy and love. And I think for me, like Midrash is the thing that grabbed me, and I just hope that all of you find the thing that grabs you and keeps you connected. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Brian. I'm going to grab the dragon text so that we can, like, we have a couple minutes before our next presentation. So I think I'll get that link and just allow people to peruse it a little. It's to give context. It's the Book of Esther that we talk about with the Book of Esther is what others would talk about as only part of the Book of Esther. There is an expanded Esther that was seen as sacred by certain groups of Jews and Judeans, but largely became more of a big deal in Christian canon. And it indeed says that there are two dragons. There's this whole dream sequence that happens. It's really cool. So I'll find a link to that and put it in the chat. But thank you so much, Brian Mann.
Also, if I may, Lex,
Oh, yeah,
before you
yeah.
close, I'm seeing people have figured out the next bits of Mr. Brightside in the chat, and it's getting quote boarded. So
Hell
that's
yeah.
that's for our love and joy to come back to.
I have a feeling that our next teacher will be able to help with that too, Annie Prusky. There was a beautifully integrated quote of Mr. Brightside that Brian brought, and now the challenge is just finding ways to get the Torah of every lyric of that song. So Annie, you can take that mantle on. But Brian, man, thank you so much for taking us into Esau as a vampire. Give it up for a wonderful presentation, everyone.
Thank you so much. Yashakoa. So good.
Blah, blah, blah.
Spectacular stuff, y'all.
No notes. No notes.
Thank you, everybody. I will now do our hourly ritual of Shavuot Live. We count up the hours of this journey of revelation, just as we count up the days leading into Shavuot. And so, with that, this has been 11,
10.
10. Did I say 10 last time? I don't know. I might have said 10 last time. This has
No,
been
you were
10.
good. You said 9 last time.
I said that. Good. I'm just loopy. This has been 10 hours of Shavuot Live. We've hit a minion of hours.